What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, coming at you today with another episode of Does It Suck? The show where we take a deep dive look at a new game and see what's good or bad about it. And this time we're going to be checking out Pubg, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, the phenomena that in 2017 was literally the biggest game on the planet. It was setting sales records, people were talking about it, and it seemed like everywhere you looked it was making headlines. But now, at the end of 2018, it's practically forgotten. And I think a big reason for that is that it was never on the PlayStation 4, which obviously is the biggest console on the planet. While the idea behind Pubg, Battle Royale, and having this really desperate fight for survival was so unique and interesting, without that exposure it did hurt it in the long run. And now, almost everybody who's into Battle Royale is playing Call of Duty or Fortnite. But now, it's at last arrived, and I'm very curious if it's enough to really thrive and survive. So let's take a look at it. First and foremost, I want to say that I played this game back at launch, when it first came out on the PC and then the Xbox, and those versions kind of sucked. Now, I mean no offense to them, and they did improve over time, but initially, they were completely broken messes that had you falling through the world, guns glitching out, and frame rate so bad you would have literal slideshows sometimes. And thankfully, all of this has been completely ironed out. The PlayStation 4 version of this is extremely liquidy smooth, but beyond that, the more important aspect is you're getting every patch that's already been released all bundled into one, meaning that you have multiple maps to play on, all sorts of different weapons, and some really retooled choices when it comes to the control options that were very, very smart. Let's go over real quick what the core root of Pubg is and what makes it different from other games that sort of look similar. The biggest thing here is the fact that Pubg is massive. PlayerUnknown's maps are just enormous, and because of it, the average match is much, much longer. I mean, if you're playing a lot of Battle Royales, you're probably used to matches that are between 12 and 25 minutes, whereas here, honestly, I think I spend about 35 to 45 minutes in every single match, and that's if I'm being kill hungry. This can sometimes be great because it means that you have really long bouts of building up tension and having chances to really be desperate to find that next victim, and it makes it where when you do encounter somebody, it becomes this really surprising encounter where you're just blasting each other as fast as you can. But it also has the tremendous downside that when you die, it can sometimes suck. Like, if I am wandering around on a map for 20 minutes all by myself and I haven't seen a single other player, I hop in a car and accidentally crash it, then I just wasted 20 minutes and didn't really get a chance to do anything. I will say though that some of the newer maps they've introduced are on the smaller side, and those are incredibly fun. Like, this jungle map is incredibly cool, especially if you're playing squads. Being able to call out targets to your teammates and try and find those next weapons is really, really cool, and a lot of times you are basically tripping over other players the entire match, and I like that. Like, here was a time when I was just trying to run down the hill, and unfortunately all my teammates had been murdered, and I saw these two dudes trying to hide in this house. So I threw a grenade and tried to flank him, and in their fear and panic of trying to flee from me, I managed to take down both targets by myself. And honestly, it was a huge rush. It made me feel like I was this absolute king of the Battle Royale genre. And I think that part of the reason I'm able to play this good is that thankfully they have worked on the controls a tremendous amount. When this game first came to consoles, to call it clunky is an understatement. There were so many multiple button presses required for every single function, and in many ways I think they've managed to streamline it, but it's still not the best. Like, some buttons actually have multiple uses. If you want to aim down the sights in this game, you have to tap the trigger, whereas if you're trying to do a scoped aim, you need to hold the trigger. And it makes it where a lot of times in really intense situations, you have to not only keep yourself calm, but you need to very purposely think of every single action, or else you'll make one dumb mistake and end up back on the starting screen. I also think that there are some problems when it comes to the equipping. Since this game was obviously made originally for the PC, it was pretty much optimized for the idea of finding items on the ground and immediately customizing your weapon. I mean, trying to detail out every single aspect of your particular arsenal is a big part of the gameplay. What kind of scope you should have, what kind of silencer, the butt of the gun, if you need an extended clip or faster reloading, that is really the biggest key to victory, along with stuff like finding better weapons and armor just as you progress. And it was always such a pain on the Xbox One version to try and open up your inventory and drop or pick up specific items. And I think that they've managed to make it a little bit smoother here, but not nearly enough. It is so nerve-wracking sometimes when you see something on the ground and you want to pick it up, you see this big old box full of enemy items, but the odds of you getting shot while looting it are unfortunately quite high, since standing still and trying to go through multiple menus for every single item you want to put on is still pretty nerve-wracking. And it's actually one of the things that I think is the biggest drawback to the game. Other things already, like Fortnite and of course Call of Duty, have found better ways to handle this. I mean, freaking Blackout mode in Black Ops 4 has so many streamlined options to make it where you can immediately equip things straight off the ground, switch out weapons, keep things fully geared up, and it makes it where after you've played a good version of Battle Royale, it's a little bit weird to go down to something like this that unfortunately still feels like a downgrade. And you know, the biggest concern I have is that everybody I've played with online so far is of course a little bit raw and new. They're not really great at it yet, so I was able to take out entire teams by myself, but even the people I was playing with seemed to be quite listless. They seemed like they were pretty much ready to quit already, and it technically came out today. And also, the starting screen already has a message that says that the player base is pretty low, and therefore they've had to disable certain modes. This is by far my biggest concern. PUBG only operates when millions and millions of players are constantly jumping onto the servers. You need a massive player base to keep it running, to keep it fresh, and to keep the people invested in that next big match. The fact that there is already a drought of players on day one is an extremely worrying sign, and I think that, if anything, if this game isn't able to take off right at the start, people are going to be quitting faster than they are joining, and when things start to dry up, the entire game is going to die. Now, I do want to say, though, that while this isn't the most spectacular game, it's still very uniquely fun. I'm glad that this is here because it's still a very different take, an ultra-serious version of Battle Royale that I'm glad is finally on the PlayStation 4. But I'm not sure if, honestly, I'm going to be playing it too much longer. I mean, so many games manage to do the best parts of this even better, so going back to it feels like a bit of a trade-off. I am thankful that this is a good port though. The frame rate is good, the load times are nice, and even when I'm trying to do stuff that's really intensive, the game never once had a single hiccup. I can also say that despite the fact that this is day one, the servers were rock solid. I did not have a single time where something lagged out or did weird. I'm also very glad that I'm playing this now over a year after launch because they've managed to repair the biggest glitch they had, which was sound design. It was so impossible in this game originally to tell if people were above you or below you in a house, or if you heard gunfire off in the distance, it would sometimes come out of your headphones in every direction, because it just didn't know how to properly calculate different stuff like audio, and now all of that is much more seamless. This is genuinely the absolute best version of PUBG, so if you have ever been interested in it, I highly recommend you pick this up. But the problem is that if you've already tried other versions of Battle Royale, you're probably not going to be super entertained. I like what they're trying to do, I give them credit, and I'll definitely keep an eye on it, but other than coming back for nice new maps, I'm not sure I'm ever going to get as invested as I was originally. Well, what do you think about it? Have you gotten a chance to play PUBG, or are you somebody who's really invested in a different Battle Royale? This new subgenre of BR games is, in my opinion, super fascinating because it's just grown in popularity so enormously, so quickly. And now I think that some things are going to definitely feel the pop because they're just not going to have enough oxygen to keep breathing. But thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Also, I want to say a special thank you to all the people I randomly got to play with, because I had some crazy good teammates who seriously helped me get some really nasty wins, and it made this entire thing about 50 times more fun. So you guys rock. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.